G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Simon Smallchua from Harvey, based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Simon.
Hey, thanks to be here.
Before we get into it, I think it'd be really interesting for the audience just to explain your surname, how that came about.
Yeah, so my current wife, she was Rebecca Chua, Chinese name. She's from Malaysia. I'm Simon Small, and she started getting a nickname at her work when she was dating me. We called the Smallchua because she's short and she's Chua, and it was just this funny name, and we were laughing about it heaps. And then one day we went, maybe we could actually make that our name. That's weird. Yep. So I Googled alternative naming when you get married, and there's actually 8 different ways you can deal with it these days. As more and more people are doing it, because you don't just follow the conventions. So you can merge your name, you can hyphenate, you can take 2 bits, you can, for your kids, you can like iterate between each name and they should share your names with them. There's all these different versions, and we just thought, let's do it.
Combine it.
And yeah, here we are.
I love it. It's very, very modern. That's great. Let's start with how we know each other. So that's Anna Ross from Kester Black. I had her on the cast some months ago, and she raved about you guys. So I reached out, see if you'd come on the cast. And also, initially, we started talking about whether you could help us with the Distillers Institute with our, particularly our online marketing there. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, she's created an amazing business. She's a great example of a business leader who's an intuitive leader and just figures out what works for customers, what she likes, what makes sense, uses data, pivots and makes changes all the time based on entering markets, exiting markets, really savvy. And one of our favorite clients to work with because she really pushes us to deliver, return, ROAS, and, every hour needs to deliver value. We love it.
Yeah, they're doing wonderful things. Vegan lipstick and nail polish. She pivoted from, I think they were 90% distribution and 10% online. I think just before COVID even, they were really pushing the online stuff. And then obviously COVID hit. And then now I think they pretty much flipped it there, 90% online and 10% through distributors, etc. And from memory, when she was on the cast, she said they were growing they were growing sales 2 to 3% per week, which is great. And she was attributing a lot of that success to the work that you and the team at Harvey had contributed to the business.
No, that's great. Yeah, I mean, they were growing and had a lot of revenue through the distribution stuff, but they weren't making any margin.
Yep.
They were just focused on volume because they thought that's what they had to do. And then the other thing we did was enter into the Europe, or they were in Europe, but we pushed Europe and US. Mm-hmm. And there was heaps of issues with 3PL, logistics, costs, all kinds of stock, and then cost to acquire customers.
Yes.
And we just sort of made the call and pulled back on that completely. So, and partner with some people locally to sell. We're going to evaluate that in the future, just to really consolidate Australia and New Zealand. And the work we did was around, rebuilding their Shopify stores to make it fully manageable themselves so they can control it all and optimize stuff, leveraging Klaviyo and automations and different promotional pop-ups and workflow, automated flows and stuff. And then, we've actually helped them manage their Facebook ads by themselves.
Yep.
And then cleaned up their Google ads that were just, they were spending a lot and getting a decent result for Google ads, but it wasn't a good ROAS for the business at the time. So we kind of pulled it back.
Yeah.
Just doing these little adjustments and tweaks and helping them where possible to do it themselves as well.
Yeah, great. And what does ROAS, what's that acronym?
Return on advertising spend. So if you spend $1, you get $5 back.
Yep, great. So tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, so we're basically a marketing team for smaller impact businesses. We started in 2019. Is that the year? What year are we in? It's hard to keep track these days. And my wife, who started the business, was working at Thank You at the time, which is a pretty prominent social enterprise in Australia. And she was managing their brand, their digital, their e-com, social, everything, run some big campaigns. Was moving on, wanted to look for something different. went out to the market, tried to find other ethical impact-led businesses like Thank You that were genuinely conscious about what they were doing. Met a lot of people, a lot of exciting stuff, but not a lot that needed a senior marketer, like a head of marketing director / CMO. So couldn't afford her, but they needed help. And so basically started trialing some projects, did like 3 free projects just to test the waters, and found that these companies really got value out of very targeted work. And basically we operate as their marketing team. So whether it's as a CMO, as a marketing manager, as an executor, we're a really lean kind of approach to be like, we're part of your team and we're going to help you deliver whatever you need to deliver. And so, yeah, from that point, we saw success, and then we really focused on impact and conscious businesses, we call it, which is basically organizations that are doing something good for the world. And because that's really like a dream for us. But in doing that and actually focusing on ethical impact businesses, it narrowed our focus, it improved our growth, and we got people coming out of the woodwork just like, we want to work with you because you're clear and focused. The weeks and months before that, when we were telling friends, we're starting a little agency, we want to do marketing stuff, they were like, sure, great, good on you, awesome. There's a million out there, they have their own. And then as soon as we went, we're thinking about just doing ethical conscious stuff, they're like, great, I know 3 people, you should talk to blah, 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 blah.
It's amazing how powerful having that clarity and focus in what you do really gets a lot more opportunities, the right opportunities at your door.
Yep, it's amazing. Yeah. In terms of what we do, we operate as a marketing function, and for some at the biggest level where they engage us fully, we do everything. They have no marketing team. So we directly work with the founders or the general managers, and we set the marketing strategy, define the brand, create a marketing calendar, go all the way down to creating like social content and emails and, manage their Facebook ads or Google. We're like a Jack or a Jane of all trades.
Yep.
We do a bit of everything. And when there's an opportunity to bring someone in who's like a deep specialist, say on SEO or Facebook ads or whatever, when they're spending enough and there's clear return on investment, we'll go get in a specialist that can just make that fly. Yep. We'll get you to a point from sort of like doing nothing much or not doing it great to having a bit of a robust sort of plan. And our goal is to move out of the business over time. So it's like they should backfill us and hire, and we'll help them hire a junior person or a marketing manager or an ad specialist or a CMO and go, good, you're good to go now, off you keep going. So that's at the full end. The other end, the lightest touch we do is like coaching. So we'll catch up once a week or a fortnight, review what they've done, ask some questions, help them prioritize their activities for the next 2 weeks, give them feedback, look at some data together, teach them some things, and then they'll go off and do it themselves. And there's a blend fully in between all of those things.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a really good attitude to have to help the customers skill up and then eventually not need you. I think that's great. I think it'd be appreciated by a lot of businesses out there.
Yeah, totally. And then in terms of what we actually deliver, it's like a bunch of brand strategy. So what is their purpose, values, tone of voice, messaging, and that often comes to life in a visual identity, which we have designers that we can recommend, or we work with their designers to update their visual expression. So we do a bunch of that, which can often include a lot of customer research. So we'll do surveys and data analysis and try to understand the market. Marketing strategy and planning. Where should you invest your time? Is it in events? Is it in PR? Is it in website, digital, whatever? Content calendars and strategy underneath that. And then specifically, we build some websites and we take, again, a lean approach to that. My background is in I'm more technical. My Beck's more brand and comms. We built Shopify stores, Klaviyo, review engines, all that kind of stuff, as well as very simple websites for non-e-commerce businesses using things like Wix or Webflow.
Yep.
Really quick sites that look good, are on brand, say the right stuff, but are not overly engineered. Yeah.
And how did you start out? You had a business early on in your career, didn't you? And then moved back into kind of corporate before you jumped in? Because the audience, this is the second time recording this because I forgot to hit record.
I gotta remember what we said. It was great.
Coming off holidays.
We were doing so well. We were doing so well. We were nailing it.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah. So this time should be better, right?
Yes. Got coffee with me this time.
Yeah. So I started a business when I was 19. I was a developer at the time. I hadn't been a uni or anything, but just was a nerd. So started doing stuff in PHP and MySQL, built my own CMS, built some e-com stores, built a bunch of stuff, probably built like 100 websites in a couple of years.
Which nerd hasn't built their own CMS, really? I think I even built one.
Yeah, totally. I think we all did it back then, back in like the, 20 years ago.
Around the time of WordPress starting, and now it's
yep.
Like 60% of the websites in the world run on WordPress, which is a CMS or a content management system for the audience.
Yep. And I moved to that as well. I started building websites in WordPress, and then, but then that quickly evolved into, well, clients were often building a website, which made them question their brand and their brand strategy. So I was doing some of that stuff, and how do they promote themselves. So I did that for a few years, got up to like 10 people when I was about 22, 1 or 2, and then wasn't doing so well, like was growing and get heaps of customers and stuff, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was spending too much. I wasn't charging enough, had some cash flow issues. And then it just had 3 months of basically some sales not closing that we're going to, that just hit hard. And so I was going to take an approach of like borrow some money or get through it. But then a friend who also had a successful agency was like, hey, well, why don't we just merge together and we'll take you on and whatever. So we did that. So I worked for them, which meant I could focus more on strategy. And I had developers and stuff. I could move into a more specialized role. And we did integrated comms, so PR stunts, branding, TV ads, digital, Facebook. We built Facebook pages back in like 2000 and whatever, 4 or 5, 6, whatever, whenever it first happened, and did some really creative work. Then moved to, this is all in Adelaide, by the way, which is a small town, it's a small city in Australia.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. From is the key word.
I love Adelaide.
Now. No. It's a great place, but in your teens and 20s, it's pretty, there's not a lot going on. And career-wise, there's not a lot of options. So I was building e-com sites from scratch, full build, CMS, everything for like $5,000, $10,000.
Yeah.
With like very sophisticated stuff that here you would charge much more than that. Came to Melbourne, and at the time I was working on a startup as well, which was basically I was building a platform for lawyers to share and crowdsource documents and charge for document templates. Working with a friend who's a commercial lawyer in Sydney. So nearly got that running, had another one of those life moments where I was like, what do I do? Do I continue going in this path? We had a grant, we had some money, it's going to be awesome. Or I got an opportunity to work at an agency called Visual Jazz at the time, which was like a 60-person digital agency that built websites for like Defence, Holden, and a bunch of others. And I was like, what do I do? Sliding doors. And I just went the more safe route, because at that point I'd been working hard, very, very hard, 120 hours a week type thing. And, didn't get to party much, didn't, meet girls and have a fun time. I was pretty stressed and lost a lot of hair pretty early on.
Me too. And unlike you though, I've got a lot of grey hair.
I think grey's good. I've got a few coming out, so hopefully that changes. So went to Visual Jazz, which was a 60-person agency. And I came on as a digital strategist for Holden, which at the time, so where are we? I lose track of time, but a while ago, 15 years ago, they didn't know what that was. They had it in their retainer. Holden, know what digital strategist was. Visual Jazz didn't know what it was. I didn't really know what it was.
Yep.
So I learned from my account director at the time what that meant, and basically did all kinds of stuff like mobile strategy, should they build apps or not, phones, social, launched over the course of 8 years of being there, we launched Facebook pages, Instagram pages, and Snapchat for like Jetstar, Holden, David Jones, ANZ, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
We grew the agency to became on the executive fairly early on, and we grew it from 60 to 350 people over that time. We're awarded like #1 agency in multiple different awards every year for like years. Got all these other recognition. I got the opportunity to present at TED in Brazil, which was awesome, on a research project we did. And we did everything from building websites, doing customer research, doing full customer journey mapping in like ANZ, in branch, teledesign, we built games, social media, content strategies, all kinds of stuff. It was an amazing experience, really great culture. They were founded by a bunch of just Aussie country dudes, basically, and they had a bit of a no nonsense, no bullshit kind of approach to everything. No bullshit was one of our values.
Yep, great.
And it attracted people like that. So we had these people who we were not taking a conventional corporate strategic money sucking approach. We were just like, what does the client want? How do we come up with an idea? Let's do it. What do you reckon? And so, super successful business that has continued to be awesome. And then from there, I then worked on, I wanted to basically leave agency life. So I wanted to be in a company and do their marketing just to be closer to everything. So I moved to a customer data platform software company.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a mouthful, but they're a Melbourne-based company with offices in Sydney, New York, and LA. And so that platform would aggregate data for a company, pull it from many different sources, like Optus, for example, would pull this data together and go, this is everything we know about Simon. This is when he last visited our website. This is his last transaction. This is the last time we did customer service. And they would then be able to do data analysis, segmentation, grouping, and then target those people in email and Facebook and whatever.
Yep.
So I moved there as originally a bit of a broad role. I was managing the support team, the solutions team, and marketing. And so that was quite a technical role, a customer service role, and running marketing. And then over time, my role focused purely on marketing. I had a little team of 5 in Melbourne, LA, and New York, building the brand, running events, doing promotions, doing content reports with like eMarketer, and producing our own content series. It's a really great culture, awesome, proper. They cared about the people, they cared about the products. They were really trying to do good things. And then this is when Beck was changing, moving on from Thank You. She was going, well, I want to do something different. And she kept talking about this idea of working together and starting an agency or a business. And I was like, nah, I've done that before. I'm over it.
The last thing you want to do.
Yeah, I was really against it. And she just kept creating opportunities. And as soon as we decided on this focus on impact, it totally changed for me. I was just like, I get it now. I'm keen. The reward when you're working really hard and, making money or not through this business is so much higher when you're sitting there like at 10 p.m. fixing that thing that broke, or coming up doing that thing that's due urgently for a company that's legitimately doing something good for something. Mm-hmm. It's totally different compared to like we're trying to sell a credit card for some bank and you're like, the people don't care about this that I'm working with. The bank won't even notice. I'm selling a fucking credit card, which is going to put people in debt. Like,
exactly.
Whereas this is like, so an example this week I had, yesterday I was interviewing a bunch of farmers in Honduras who have been hit by 2 hurricanes, which has devastated the region. They're economically screwed. The health implications, there's no humanitarian aid coming in. And I'm getting to like make a little promotion for this is a bit of a pro bono thing to try and raise some money for them through a GoFundMe campaign, right? It's just like, that is insanely rewarding. And
That's great. Yeah. And so what year, excuse me, sorry, Peter. So in 2019, when Harvey was launched, so how old were you then when you made the jump back into agency?
I always forget how old I am. I'm terrible. I think I'm 37 at the moment. So I would have been like 35, I think.
Yeah, great. And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of Harvey?
So we, interestingly, our intention with the business is not to grow. We actually wanted it to stay as just 2 of us forever. And the reason for that is to stay close to our clients and actually be on the tools, because we find that most rewarding.
So that's also you guys get to do the work you love doing, but secondly, you can then partner with other people you respect in other fields, so you don't have to build a big team and manage people. Is that?
Yep, because all that management stuff, which we've both done in the past, just adds overhead of just not the fun stuff. I mean, it can be really rewarding managing people. I've had a great time and help people, unlock their potential and awesome stuff. But also, I just like making websites and content and working with the CEOs of the companies as well, like the leaders, is really rewarding. So, and financially, you don't make much more money unless you really nail it. The challenge with growth with agencies, it's different maybe for other businesses, is you've got to win more work, then you've got to hire the people before you get the money to be able to deliver the work. And there's this constant like treadmill of growth that you're never quite, I mean, you do make money for sure, and you can sell and exit and stuff and make millions, but that's not our goal. But it's hard, whereas we're now making decent money. We've actually set a cap on our income. We don't want to increase our income as individuals. And so we want to divert extra money into like donations into, we're doing Greening Australia at the moment, but also investing in businesses and doing other stuff. And our retirement is our impact. So when we're like 80 and we go, do we make an extra $1 million or $2 million through our life? No, but we're still in the richest 1% in the world anyway, so we're good. But we know we helped 1,000 farmers in Honduras and whatever. So, saying all that, we set our revenue to be. Pause. Did I say the actual numbers last time of what our revenue was?
I think you did.
Okay.
Was it around 700?
It was 300 and then 600.
306.
600,
Yeah.
5, 6, yeah, cool. So yeah, our first year was around like 300 to 400, and that is an awesome amount for us. We're happy with that for two of us.
Right.
And yeah, then at that point, sort of towards the end of the first year, Beck had a baby. So she took maternity leave. We brought on someone who we've been ad hoc working with. We brought them on as a cover for Beck. Then, so we basically were still two people, same size. And then, coincidentally, someone else that was a friend of a person that we knew was looking for work and was, again, contract helping some clients. We were like, let's come on full time. Worked really well. Beck's now back in the business 2 days a week. And so we've been questioning whether we retain those people and go against what we sort of said. And we've decided we will. We've decided that we will, so long as we don't spend more than 10% of our time managing the business. So we should be spending 90% of our time on clients.
Right.
And if we keep that, we can have as many people as we want or not. And so basically based on that, our revenue doubled in that year, last year in COVID, which was partly due, I think we were lucky in that we deal with a lot of digital marketing stuff. So Shopify stores and Facebook ads, which everyone was doing last year. Shopping from home. And then now Beck's back in the business. Revenue will go up a little bit more. And then a good outcome for that is we donate 5% of our revenue to charities, and like I said, it was Greening Australia that we've committed to probably for a while, because we believe that the environment is the biggest issue facing us all, and Greening Australia do amazing work, planting trees, rebuilding habitats, all kinds of stuff. It means we can double our donation. So we increased our donation this year to I calculated the other day, like 30 grand or something, which is an interesting thing. It sounds easy to say 5% in business, whatever, but when it's in your own money, that would literally be, we would take it out of the business. We could buy, it's more to deposit on our next house, or it's a holiday to Europe, an awesome holiday. It's really challenging to make that decision. And we pushed ourselves to really go, well, should we or should we not? Do we want to, and we ended up doing it. And like going through that process of really comparing doing it and not, really bluntly being like, well, what's the pros and cons? We just went, well, like, a holiday to Europe would be amazing. We could probably still have one, maybe not as often or whatever. We've got a good life, but the tree, knowing that
I bet you get a shit ton more value at 5% on 300 grand, sorry, 600 grand. Say that again. 5% on, say, 600 grand, it's 30 grand that you're donating. And that is a very good holiday in Europe. But I reckon you'll get a shit ton more value out of the feeling of helping all those other organizations and people than, wandering through Europe for a couple of weeks.
100%. Yeah. And I think it comes back to how much money do you need to be happy? And you probably don't need any, really, in theory, just meditate or something. But
there was a Harvard study which said that roughly, I think in Aussie dollars, anything over $75,000 a year, there's a marginal increase in happiness. It's bugger all.
Yep.
So money it's not money that makes people happy. It was just another Harvard review, the longest standing study on happiness, been going over 70 years. They, excuse me, they started with a cohort out of the Bronx in New York, I think, and tracked them through, they ask them every couple of years some questions from laborers through to doctors and surgeons, etc. And they all said the finding of the study is continually the same answer, which is it's not money, it's relationships. It's how many healthy relationships you have in your circle that makes you happy, not money.
Super interesting. Yeah. I think there's also health implications on that as well, like the better connection to other people, the longer you live and all that stuff. And I mean, I'm an example of that, where I previously, back when I was at Visual Jazz, that really successful agency, which, sorry, by the way, is now called Isobar, which is a global agency and 4,000 people, and people might not know it. What was I saying? Yeah, I was earning double or triple what I'm earning now.
Yep.
I then reduced that income to when I moved to Alexa, because I was like, look, it is a bit of a change of career for me, and I'm going client side, so whatever. Potential upside for them in growth and opportunity is huge in terms of result and growing this cool business. So I took, I think, 100K a year pay cut to go there, and I was like, that's all right, let's see what happens. And my lifestyle didn't change, my happiness didn't change. No. And then now it's a little bit less, and again, hasn't. it's actually the opposite. I feel better. I just feel like I'm more, purposeful about my work, and I've changed. We basically just had to reevaluate what we spend money on before, which I hadn't done before. You just go, oh, I got a pay rise of 50 grand, or my business making more money. I'll just buy more stuff.
That's it.
But actually,
you start pushing money up against the wall. It's one of the biggest things though, that to build wealth is obviously saving money, particularly if you get a pay rise. You put a lot of that extra income away into savings. And I do talk about this a bit with friends and particularly business owners, because there is this false mentality, I believe, that I've got to keep earning more and make a shitload of money and, sell out for millions, and then I will be happy, and then I will spend time with the family and my friends. Whereas a lot of people will get into their 40s or 50s, 60s, whatever, cash out, turn around, that don't have those friends and family because they haven't maintained the relationships. And secondly, they got to, you don't need that much money in retirement to live off, a comfortable tax-free income, say of 100 grand a year is very, very generous, particularly if you own your house. But, someone in their early 20s, if they've got a real saving mentality, they don't need to have a really high paid job, as long as they are putting away more money than, the average person does. With compound interest, as Einstein said, it's the seventh wonder of the world. It's just a phenomenally powerful thing. And building that habit early on. Actually, my daughter and I are writing some kids' books on finance at the moment. She's 7.5. Because obviously she's my little experiment. Obviously, she's a little consumer at the moment, so that's my next battle. But I don't give her pocket money; she has to earn everything, and she's understanding the value of money, and that I go to work and her mum goes to work, and what we do, etc. And also to save up for things, and it's really good. So we're trying to write those books, so to ingrain into kids the habit of hard work, saving money, not going to debt, obviously, and that compounding effect when they get a bit older. The books will introduce that concept to them as well. So
really, that's really cool. Yeah. And I mean, I think it was so hard for me, because in my previous mode, up until that point where I started to reduce my income, I was the same. I was like, cool, I'm on this money, I've got this much responsibility, I'm this senior. Well, the next step is to run the company, or to run this other company, I'll be global and do more and more money and whatever. Not necessarily just for money, but just because that's what you do. And then when I actually had that moment of like questioning it and changing it and whatever, it's like, wow, cool, that doesn't actually matter. And then you pull back and you go, cool, I've got less money, so I'm forced to prioritize. And I would have just probably been buying drinks for more people when I was at the bar, or buying an extra dinner or fancy dinner, or just buying an extra dish at that, like little things, all these little incremental things. You don't even notice they're not there anymore. And now I do value when we do those things more and really enjoy it. But also go to places that are cheaper for dinner, that are actually beautiful and delicious, but I wouldn't have previously maybe thought that because they weren't as fancy. And this applied, like we downsized that car. We went from a Subaru Forester, which is a very accessible, reasonable car that was good, unnecessary really. We went down to a Honda Jazz, and that was a hard decision because it looks ugly. I hate it, but it's so functional. It's so efficient. It's good. We did it for the planet, right? For efficiency. And now we're saving him some money, and I don't feel like, I don't care like what people think of my car, or it doesn't affect my life. But
I'm the same. I drive a shitty car as well. I don't give a flying fuck what people think.
Totally. But it was funny when having a fancier car, like a slightly better car, and I wanted better ones, I would look at other people's cars and I'd look at them looking at me and be like, I wonder how this makes people feel. Whereas now I'm like proud. Yeah, you like seeing my car? It's a little functional box. And the reason I do it is because of my values and whatever.
It's from A to B. It's not a status symbol, which a lot of people do use cars and other material things like that. Yeah. And when was the moment you felt like you had succeeded, Simon?
You mean at Harvey or in general?
Oh, it's a very open question for a specific reason.
I think at various times in my career, I felt like I've succeeded. So, back when I was 19, 20 and I was winning clients and doing good work and they were loving it, I felt good at the time. Felt like I was growing, and it didn't for a bit, and that sucked. Then at the next place, I was probably doing really cool work that was really interesting and challenging. I felt like I was being creative and stimulated, so I felt like I'd achieved at that point. At Isobar and Visual Jazz, it was more like growth and business and esteem in the industry and heaps of money and all this stuff. I felt like that was really good. But then I had a year or two at the end where I was like, this is not fulfilling and satisfying. And then Lexa again, I was like, yeah, awesome, cool. I'm doing it again. I'm like growing this cool startup company, software, blah, blah, blah. And then I think the most recent I probably feel like now I feels very different. Maybe a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
when we would have been roughly a year in business. We had enough work for pretty much ongoing forever, if not definitely 3 to 6 months of upcoming work. And we had people contacting us saying like, can we work with you? Do we meet your values and your ethical things? Are we a good fit? And we had that happening like semi-regularly, like every few weeks. And these people reaching out were like amazing organizations or people, like honored, that felt very humbled. So that's probably the point, when the dynamic shift, where previously it was all about trying to get more work, trying to achieve results and prove to people that I was good. And I felt like I'd achieved that in different levels. Now it's like, coming to us, I'm doing good work. I'm confident that my clients are getting value out of what we do. And people are coming to us. Like feels very different. Yeah. But again, sorry.
So I just said that's a great sign. Yeah.
Now saying that, in 5 years' time, I might look back at this moment and go, oh, there's another moment that's, these are all just moments of, feeling like I've made it, and who knows what it will be. I mean, looking forward, what I'm sort of aspiring to do is move my time to be more 3 to 4 days a week of work.
Yep.
Have a bit of time either outside of that to do things like, say, a podcast like you're doing, do some extra things that help the community more broadly, invest in businesses, sit on some advisory kind of level things, where I'm longer term. So I don't imagine retiring ever. I don't believe in that model. But being in a place later where I am involved and stimulated and intellectually engaged and creative, but not as stressful and not as high pressure, basically. So I want to shift to that over the next, 10 years, say.
And what does success look like to you?
Yeah, I think it's really about for the next 10 years, it's working with really smart, good, ethical people who are doing good stuff. And I feel like I'm helping people or the planet. Investing in businesses, like we said, I would like to put more money into impact businesses, then partly to get equity in them, but to grow them, and then hopefully get more out of that. They grow or sell, and we get some cash out of some of that and put it into more. Then, like I said, working 3 or 4 days a week is a goal for both of us. Good work-life balance. And then, things like I would love to have one or more really, really impactful, products or projects. So one we're working for at the moment is a company called ATEC, ATEC. They make a biodigester in Cambodia. A biodigester is basically a big tank. It looks like a water tank where you put in cow poo, and it produces, through some science, it produces cooking gas and organic fertilizer.
Right.
So for a farmer in Cambodia who's like a smallholder, who's like a house with a few crops around it, they can now cut their costs and improve their crop yields by 30% every year, and charge more for them because they're organic.
Yep.
This is a really amazing low-cost technology that they've rolled out to thousands of people in Bangladesh and Cambodia, which we've helped with a little bit. They've got potential to do that with millions of people globally. And they've also got a new product which we're about to launch, which is in the clean cooking space, which could help impact millions and millions of people. So I would love one day to go, I helped really practically and tangibly millions of people go from gas cooking or firewood cooking to clean cooking. That would just be like,
Right.
I've made it.
And perfect question for you. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
I think be clear on your difference and niche. There's so many products so many brands in every category. There aren't many opportunities that are genuinely new these days, like an agency or like a beauty brand or a coffee brand. What is it truly that's different about you? Who is your audience that you're really going after? Understand them and tailor everything to them. And don't worry about missing out on all the other stuff, all the potential people out there. They'll probably still like you and have some appeal to you or find you interesting, but you'll just definitely nail that core group of people who want a particular thing. So,
Totally agree. Focus, find your niche, find your tribe, and you're going to do a lot better.
Yep.
And we discussed this first time around when I didn't hit record. You do use the Net Promoter Score. I know you said it's off a low base, so but what's your number?
Yeah, I mean, it's 92. We've just redone it. That was last year. We've redone it. It's gone down a bit, but it's around that. And it's a bit of a fake. It doesn't. Net Promoter Score, I have mixed opinions about generally, but it's strong. And most people are rating us 8 or 9 or 10 in terms of would recommend. And we love that. And we ask for really critical feedback. But another one that's probably more, and the reason why we don't have that number in high regard for anyone who's listening is because it's such a small base and we work so closely with like 10 or 20 companies. It's so easy to get that unless you're terrible, but we hopefully do a good thing. But what we do track also is value for money. So we ask people from 1 to 5, 1 being we charge too much, 5 being we could charge more than what we do, and 3 is perfect. We hold that in higher regard. So we currently, I think the last round we got 3.4 out of 5.
That's a great indicator, actually. That's a really good question to ask.
Yeah, because that's kind of what it all comes down to, right? People are paying you for a thing. Is it worth it? Could they get it better somewhere else?
Yeah.
And so if we have anyone that said, we want to basically have a few people saying we could charge more, and we want to keep that up and not necessarily charge more, but just know that we can, and no one saying down. So that's sort of where we're at.
So you want to keep it above 3?
Above 3, yeah.
Right. And how did you fund your business?
We had a little bit of savings just to pay our bills for a while, but honestly, it's in a consulting business like ours, you can get projects and get paid quickly. So we didn't actually ever have to. I think we put 10 grand in the business account when we started it just to have some money to pay for stuff. But I think we never had to really use that. So that's the great thing in a consulting business. No overheads, no stock we need to buy and whatever. So pretty easy.
All right. And if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Into agency, no. I mean, I would if I wanted to make a business and cash out and sell it for 10 times, 20 times, but I don't want to do that. But in terms of ethical and conscious business and finding a niche within that, for sure, it's like crazy how many customers are making that switch to it because of their realization of the global crisis that we're in from an environment perspective, or because they've had a similar realization to me that they care more about their impact than their car or whatever. So I think in some of these niches, like the biodigester or other brands we're working with, I would invest in one of those businesses. Yep.
And can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journeys our audience can learn from it? That can be either at Harvey or your early business.
Stressful. Yeah, I think in the early days, it would be kind of 2 things semi-related, which was hiring the wrong people for the wrong job. They were great people, but I didn't know what any of the jobs were anyway, so I had no idea what I was doing. So don't do that, maybe. But yeah, hiring the wrong people, it made it difficult for them and me to just enjoy work and deliver value. And as a result of that, we basically were in a constant cash flow struggle. So I think one of the main learnings out of that was to make sure I've always got 12 weeks of cash flow in the bank, and never be really chasing, because I had an overdraft, then I started using that, and then I had to like really worry about when each invoice was paid and stress out my clients to go, come on, pay, and they didn't, and then whereas now it's like we don't have that issue, and I don't feel stressed, but also don't stress my clients as well. And it's like, yeah, whatever, pay when you want, try and pay within time, and they generally do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cash flow was nasty.
And what area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
What do you mean? Sorry.
So like some people might say, and some people in the past have said they knew nothing about marketing, and then they realized marketing is so important, so they swatted up on it. Or for you, it might be managing finances or managing people. Yeah.
Can you ask the question again?
Just, sure. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Probably people management. I think, if you make the wrong hires or don't fire fast enough, it burns you and them and everyone. And I honestly think everyone has got a great potential value they can add to some business or role. And if they're in the wrong spot, it's bad for them because they could be either learning from you giving brutal feedback and firing them, or they work in a better role that suits them better. The culture is different, the process is different, the function is different. So I think that's probably been the biggest thing that I've had to develop in. And then of the people who do, what can have opportunity to improve and work within their role, really focusing on learning techniques for giving constructive feedback, helping having clear development plans, really helping people be like, basically the way I like to think of it is, someone told me this at some management course, whatever, was basically you want to make someone ready as best as they can be for their dream job. Because if you give them all the capabilities and skills to do their dream job, whatever that is, they may never leave because you're the one that's developing them and giving them the opportunities they need. And they actually will be happy and fulfilled. And so I always go with that. I'm like, I ask people, it's like, cool, you're here right now. You might be here for 6 months, 2 years, whatever. Let's get over that. Who cares? What do you want to do next? What do you want to do in 5 years? Is it run your own business? Is it work in a different role? Is it do my job? Is it do that other thing? What is it? Be open. And I go, cool. All right. So you want to start your own business? Well, clearly you need to learn about finance and HR and this and this and this.
So let's put that on your development plan.
Exactly.
That's a great attitude. I interviewed Jonathan Moody recently from Physy Inc. They've a physio clinic and they've got franchises as well. They're up to 270 staff and he's got exactly the same attitude. I think all of their franchisees, they've got 12, have come from internal, from physios have come out of uni, graduates, and started, and it came out of those conversations with them. What do you want to do? In 5 years, where do you see yourself? And eventually, because he built the trust up, they said, well, actually, would love to have my own clinic. And so with that spawned the franchise model for their business, so they can take all the noise and risk and grist out of someone trying to start up their own clinic and say, well, here you go, here's a template. And that just garners even more trust with the business because they're having such a frank and open conversation. And you said people just don't leave.
Totally. Right. That's so cool. I think the word there is trust, like having a trusting dynamic both ways where they trust you and you trust them. You'll get them so much out of them and they'll do their best work and they'll be open and frank with you. And that sounds awesome what they've done.
What I've found in a lot of the businesses I've worked with, plus in my own businesses, is managers don't really invest any time in their direct reports development. They're too busy. They don't even have time for one-on-ones, which is, to me, just such a missed opportunity. But plenty of HR studies show that pay is fifth on the reason why people work somewhere. So they want to have alignment with your mission and values. They want to feel trusted by their line manager. They've got engaging work, and also above pay is they want to feel like they're being developed by their line manager. So it's a really powerful thing. Pay is fifth.
Totally. It's so often, the case. Like if you can't budget, I've had difficult conversations about that in the past when I was at, say, Isobar, because there are budgets and you can't just give out money willy-nilly. So you go, cool, you want 10 more, I can only give you 2. What else can we do to make you happier? And then you find out what they really wanted was some other thing. They want access to that project and get hands-on experience with that other great person, or they want to learn how to do a project plan, or they want to, and that's way more fulfilling and interesting than the money. Yeah. Totally.
I mean, you're a great case study. I mean, you lopped $100,000 off your wage just to have more fulfilled alignment. So, yeah.
Totally. I mean, if you go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, employment and money is like the bottom 2.
Yes.
And you tick that up pretty quickly. If you keep focusing on that, you're just stuck at that level. Like, look up a bit and just like you said, relationships, community, impact, greater purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you enjoyed least about managing fast growth?
It's probably those moments where you're just a bit pushed to work 17 hours that day or 12 hours a day for a few weeks here and there because you've got to sort of juggle everything. And then those moments where you drop the ball on something and miss a deadline by a day or get late to a meeting, and that stuff I really don't like. Happens and it's probably totally reasonable, but I just don't love it. Yeah.
And what do you love most about growing a small business?
We were thinking about this recently because we still want to change and improve the business and we get frustrated with things as it is, but then we also go, wait a second, compared to what it used to be, wherever I was, you have autonomy, you can set direction, you can say no to clients, kind of set the goals and priorities. for growing a small business specifically, probably like honestly the simplicity of it. Being as small as we are, and even if we're a little bit bigger, it's still quite simple. There's not too many layers of management. There's not too much legal and HR and all this other blah.
You would have seen a lot of bureaucracy going, to 350 staff, and then, that's now 4,000. But yeah, there would have been a lot of, fun bureaucracy.
Yeah, all the stuff that I don't like about corporate and larger, which is both the client side's stuff and our own internally, because we were owned by a global group, is unnecessary or illogical processes and people who are just like, well, sometimes a person is in a role, so they feel like they need to demonstrate authority and power and make decisions. They create extra meetings about meetings, involving in that. Or
Respect my authority was a great South Park
episode. From what's his name? Like we would have
Cartman.
To
it wasn't Cartman.
Cartman. Yeah.
Respect my authority. It's about 20 years old, show my age now, but
yeah, totally.
I do pull that one out sometimes in my coaching when I demonstrate that. As Mark from Manager Tools talks about, I had him on the cast last week, which will go live soon. There's 3 powers in the workplace: role power, expertise power, and relationship power. And relationship is the most powerful of those 3, and that's a professional relationship I'm talking about. And when people try to use their role power, I'm your boss, do as I say, otherwise I'm going to fire you. I throw that line in there sometimes from Carmen. Respect my authority. Yeah.
That sounds like an awesome framework. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Doesn't matter.
And what's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your what's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey? Like, what have you thought? What do you think now that is really different to the way you thought about it at the start 17 years ago?
I think it's probably about having clarity on where I deliver value, and so therefore charging correctly for the product or service, and not underdoing it. That's probably the biggest thing where I'm like, yes, I know that I'm worth this for 1 hour of time. I can see the impact it will have on you. Yep. I believe it. You believe it. Great.
Yeah. And what's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Probably the prioritization versus urgency thing. So there's a matrix grid thing that people use as a tool. It's got a name.
Stephen Covey. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yep. I think I see a lot of businesses, and I can fall into the trap myself as well, is just getting into the things that are immediate return on feeling. You do the thing, you ticked off a box, it's great. Fix the thing.
Busyness. You're feel busy, but you're not being effective.
Yep, totally. So just literally going through that exercise, and I get people in the teams, we all do it, and I encourage clients to do it, is go like, put it on, just actually put the things on a post-it note, on a piece of paper, plot them out, and then go, wow, I'm really working on these things that are not important. And then it just lets you release that and go, cool, I don't need to work on it. So you and then the other thing would be planning out your weeks. So we put everything we're doing into our calendar physically, because just doing it as a to-do list or as some other thing, it's abstract, but actually going, I need to spend 4 hours on that to do it properly, or I need to do 4 hours, have a meeting, do a follow-up thing, map out the calendar for 2 weeks, roughly. Really helps you go, oh shit, I can't do this stuff, or I need help from someone, or they need help from me, or whatever. So really making it tangible.
Yeah, I'm just going to find this quote on that. Pause for a second. There's a great quote from Bill Gates on that. And that reminds me of a great Bill Gates quote. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. I think that's so true. We are really shit at estimating how long things take. I used to plan to that level of detail on my calendar when I was in London, bought into a small IT support company and grew the fuck out of it with my business partner. But I just found I just kept shifting, because I was underestimating how much everything would take. And it reminded me of a great Red Dwarf episode where Rimmer is planning to study for his exams, and every day he just keeps planning till the day before the exam, and he's got no time to study. So that was me. Yeah. No, I think that's really
Yeah.
good though to at least sit down and think about, right, the next week, what do I have, what shit do I have to get done, and give some thought to that and go, well, I reckon, that's going to take half a day. And then it helps also stop procrastination. You say, I need to lock myself away for 4 hours to knock this document out or this strategic piece of work. And also makes you think, actually, I need input from this person and this person, fire off a couple of emails.
Totally.
I'm a big planner myself. Absolutely.
Yep. I think on the Bill Gates quote, I don't know if it's the same one that I've heard or a different variant on that, but I think it's important in terms of what is your strategy for your business.
Yep.
And like you said, you overestimate what will happen in the next year in your business, and you'll set unrealistic goals. We're going to double our growth, we're going to improve our net promoter score by 30%, and all these things that are just unachievable. But then if you set actual realistic goals for 5 years, or maybe ambitious ones, you'll probably hit them.
Yes.
They are increase your MBS by 100% by then.
Yep.
You'll actually probably hit that. So, and that applies to technology, to changing your customers, to your profitability, whatever. Think a little bit more long-term ambitiously and be more conservative, and then exceed that and go, and then you beat it, and that feels good. And reduce your revenue targets, reduce these things, and then try and exceed them.
Yeah.
We, for example, have just set our B Corp score target for the end of this year. We're currently 134.1, which is a pretty high score, which is easy because we're small. So I don't take much in that, but we want to increase it to 135. So increase it by 0.9, which is a tiny change, pretty achievable. And and we'll be happy with that. And then in the next year, a little bit more, and the next year, a little bit more. And then by
from setting that target, you also, as a team, talk about what can we change or do differently to get that extra 0.9% and then work towards it. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Maybe for the audience, because it's been mentioned a couple of times, maybe you briefly explain what B Corps are, because they're big in the US, or only just growing here in Australia. I had Julie from Flora and Fauna on, the largest.
Awesome.
Website. Yeah, it's 8,000 SKUs on their website, largest vegan website in the world. They're a B Corp.
So B Corp is a not-for-profit organization that will certify businesses, and they'll evaluate a couple of hundred aspects of your business, like what's your energy consumption, how do you deal with waste, how do you treat staff, all kinds of stuff. Super rigorous and thorough. You go through that process, they audit all these documents and information, and then give you a score based on that.
Right.
So you know that you are doing some things right. That's why we did it. But externally, people can see that company must be doing something good.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. GrowSmallBusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I mean, over my career in general, I've learned a lot about this, been the most important area to develop in, and hiring the wrong people for the wrong role is devastating. Not firing them or intensively developing them, giving them feedback fast enough is brutal, is bad for your business, bad for them. So yeah, being really honest about people's capability, not tippy-toeing around it, and just having them own it and improve. That's the key.
Totally agree. And what are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think trust and authenticity. So trust each other. If you can't trust each other in any or all aspects, both ways, then it's just not a good foundation. And then authenticity, let people be themselves and don't judge them for it. Whether you're a bit quirky, a bit weird, a bit funny, bad dad jokes, whatever it is. Everyone's cool, and the more open that people can be, the better you understand each other and hopefully work together.
Yep, great. And tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Yeah, it's a challenging one. It's one that I constantly struggle with, like probably a lot of people who listen to this. I like to do everything all the time at full speed, kind of, personal and professional. And so balance for me is strict diary management. So I use Google Calendar to really carefully schedule things in.
Yep.
I do not outside of exceptions, I will finish work at 6 or 7, and that I don't look at work stuff until when I start again.
Yep.
And weekends as well, just like hard finish, unless there's like a crazy deadline or some weird thing. And then, yeah, but the negative side to me that I'm struggling with is, or working on is, I like to have this mentality of whatever anyone needs, team or clients or the world, I want to be able to help them. I'll say, yeah, I can do it. I can get it done. I'll make it happen. Don't worry about it. It's all good. I'll cover it. I'll wear it. That puts a lot of pressure on me unnecessarily. They probably don't even expect it. And so I'm just trying to tone that back and reduce my level of commitments. It's often the small things as well, little tiny half an hour things or little projects or whatever that then snowball. So trying to be more mindful of those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I suffered that early on in my business career as well. I'd say yes to everything and then, under deliver, and a lot of people would get pissed off and you'd miss deadlines or let people down. And it is hard to say no. And because we want to help people, and obviously when it comes to work, grow our business. So it is challenging. When I was at Lark, the CEO there, obviously early on, they didn't understand my style and the level of delegation, but I coined this phrase when I had about 5 or 6 line managers reporting to me, and early on they'd come to me and say, "Oh, what should we do here on this decision?" And I'd say, "Well, I make enough decisions in a day to run a small South Pacific nation. It's on your JD. I'll give you my opinion if you want, but it's up to you to make the call." So after a while, they learn that they've got my trust and they've got autonomy and they own certain corners of the business, and it's
Totally.
It's a good mechanism to help me say no and push back and delegate down.
Yep. Awesome.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years? Books, courses, training, conferences, and things.
I've gone to a bunch of conferences in marketing. I've gone to things like TED, lucky enough to go to one in Brazil. Then I've done like a bit of reading, not much. I'm not one of those people who can just like whip out quotes of someone said this thing and I know that book.
Yep.
So yeah, not much of that. But then have done a bunch of leadership coaching, training, hands-on courses. So one of the most impactful one was a group of 8 of us that were running the company at the time, the larger company. And we had, 2-day leadership sessions with this amazing coach who just transformed how we all led and managed and communicated. So,
yeah. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way? Can you tell us about that experience and value added, if so?
Yeah, probably not like structured or formal, but I do, through my career, I've realized that I usually look to 2 to 3 people at a period of time that I idolize, or their attributes about them that I want to mimic or learn from or adapt. So I just kind of keep an eye on them and catch up with them and whatever. And then, a good manager was really good manager was my previous boss at Isobar.
Yeah.
So that was the company that grew massively.
Mm-hmm.
He's just very much a trusting person, lets people make mistakes, really listens to everybody. And that just I learned a lot about leadership from him around how to work with people and not try to solve everything yourself. So, but yeah, nothing super structured, to be honest.
Yeah. And with Harvey now, do you have a board of directors or advisors?
No, we don't. We've considered it. We're so small. I'm not actually sure of whether we should. What do you think for a company of like 2 or 4 people? It just seems like, yeah.
Yeah, you may not need it, but it might be worth even just quarterly. You can start small and even just have your accountant sit in on that strategy session, and maybe a lawyer, or you guys are obviously strong in marketing, so you probably don't need someone on the board to bring that skill to the table. But it's probably a good habit to get into, even quarterly, to say, here are our 1 and 5 year goals. How are we tracking? Has anything changed? Do we need to substantially change our KPIs or goals that we're going after? It gets you into that habit of stopping and working on the business. It reminds you, because as you know, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day.
Yep.
So even just informally, you can start small, get other advisors, maybe other business people that are more experienced or taking a business of your type further down the road. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be bigger, but if one of your goals is, we're fine with our revenue and our what dividends and wage we're taking out of the business, but the thing we really need to work on might be, balance. So I want to work 4 days a week. We're struggling to get to that. What do we need to change, and how are we getting there?
Yeah, it's a good call. We do the quarterly planning and annual planning ourselves. And set goals and communicate with the team and stuff. But I think having a couple of people, and as you were just talking, I was thinking of a couple of people, and maybe calling an advisory board weird, that makes it weird, but bouncing off our thoughts and having them challenge you and question you could be really useful. Yeah,
absolutely. Even just to reinforce good decisions. I'm thinking we should do this. bounce it off external people that aren't in the weeds, or they may come from a different industry. There's a good example. I had David Wise on the podcast from SFM/Hydrawood, and he talked of when they started their board, one of their advisors came in and said, there's 3 divisions to the business. So which division makes the least amount of money? And it was consulting services. They do forestry management. And which part of the business is the noisiest? And it was the same division. So, just simple questions like that shone a light on something that was fairly evident, but common sense is not always common practice. And they soon shut down that division and then just focused on the 2 main ones.
Yeah, it's a good point. We do it, I think about it now, we do it actually personally. So we have I don't want to call them coaches, but people who are really smart and ask us questions about how our relationship, how we're feeling, communication, and it's so insightful. So yeah, apply the same logic to the business. Yeah.
Great. All right, Simon, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing? Oh, sorry, the dogs. Start that again. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Probably balance.
And favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I mean, the one that was most impactful was Screw Business as Usual by Richard Branson.
Yep.
Which he has a great pull case studies together insight on how business can be good for the world and how it shouldn't be bad.
Yeah, great. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
A lot of the stuff I listen to is more about environment and impact.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just check the name of it. The amazing one that I'm listening to at the moment is... I can never remember the names. Oh yeah. So yeah, my favorite podcast at the moment would be How to Save a Planet by Gimlet, which looks at practical solutions that businesses and governments are doing around the world to make changes and progress. Awesome.
Great. And one tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Well, it's not exactly a tool, but data.
Yep.
Understanding your customers and your pipeline, your prospects, really efficiently, knowing where the pain points are, problems are, drop-offs are.
Yep.
If you're not across that, then you're flying blind.
And finally, my favorite question: what would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out?
Take your time, and grow slowly.
Great. Thanks for your time today, Simon. I think the audience got a shit ton of value out of what you've shared with us today, your journey, starting small, going big, going back to corporate, kind of a bit smaller, lopping 100 grand off your own wage, and then downsizing right down to 2, now 4 team members. I think that's a great and interesting journey, and I think the audience will appreciate what you've been through.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.